What's up, everybody? It's Alejandro. We're going to be covering segment 2 today. Yesterday we covered the importance of surface prep and the tooling needed to profile floors, what the difference was in grinding and shot blasting, how they correlate to each other, and how they complement each other. So today we did that on purpose because in order to mitigate and put a moisture barrier down, which is going to be our topic today, you need to have the right profile for that to stick. Okay. One big misconception that we get all the time is that a broom finish has texture, right? Well, it's still closed. That's actually surface cream of the concrete. You pull a broom on it, and which texture gets mistaken for porosity. All right, that is absolutely not the case. So that's why we open up these floors with this mechanical equipment, with mechanical means. So our 100% solids epoxies can penetrate into the pores of this concrete and create a bond strong enough to where the concrete will fail before the actual coating does. So CSP3, we covered these yesterday. Let me move these comments here. Okay. We covered these yesterday. So for a vapor barrier to bond, we need a minimum of a CSP3. Concrete surface profile of 3. So this would be the texture that you would get from bead blasting or extremely coarse diamond grinding, okay? Now, we're going to be covering Vapor Band, okay, which is our fast cure moisture mitigation system, 2-component, and then our NXT Vapor Reduction, okay? They both meet ASTM 3010, which is very important. I use it as a standard for the industry. There's several different vapor barriers out there that actually tolerate different levels of moisture or different rates of permeability. The benchmark, if you're going to mitigate for moisture, it's the way I see it is go big or go home. It peaks at 25 pounds and 100% relative humidity. That's what both of these products mean. That's considered ASTM 3010. So if you are on the market for a moisture barrier, that should be the first item on your checklist to look for. Does it meet ASTM 3010? If it does, you're going to be able to sleep at night with this application. All right, we're going to cover some different toolings that you use to put these products down and understand what notches, what thickness is, and how they correlate to the application for it to actually be a true vapor barrier. So this product that I have right here to the left of me is our general purpose 2-component vapor reduction coating. All right, this is a 2-to-1 mix ratio, slow cure, so it dries about 8 to 12 hours. All right, that one is going to be an epoxy finish, which in essence is going to be a glass finish. It's going to be non-porous. Okay, so you're going to need a primer or some sand thrown into the actual product. We're going to demonstrate that today and what that looks like to have a cementitious product actually stick to it. Where Vapor Band, this is a newer product that we went live with, I want to say coverings last year. We launched it last year, but you should know that product is about 8 years in the making. And when I tell you it's a standalone product, that's exactly what it is. We really pride ourselves in innovation, and I'm very happy to have that one in my wheelhouse. That is the only self-priming vapor barrier on the market. I want to repeat that. Self-priming vapor barrier on the market. So what this one does, that this one can't, is it eliminates the need to have to prime to put my non-porous to porous. So I do not have to put a textured primer on this one, or I don't have to throw silica sand into it to full rejection, okay? This one's fast cure, 3 hours, 8 to 12. So a lot of times in my market where we're actually installing this one is in OR rooms or fast track projects where time is of the essence. Okay, so consider if you have a job that maybe you're falling behind on, or you're overwhelmed on a job and you're trying to save a day, that product can do that for you because it's eliminating a step, which is the priming, the cost of the priming, and also the dry time for it. So you're completely eliminating probably about 5 hours in dry time, about an hour in application, and 2 to 4 more hours in dry time before you can put self-leveling on top of it. All right, so before I mix this stuff up, I'm going to be doing just a single mix. So once I mix the material, I'm going to have a certain amount of time to work with it. So I'm going to cover the tooling first and kind of explain what I'm going to be doing. and then we'll kind of just piece it together almost like a rapid fire so you can see the application of the products. So difference between these coatings being a vapor barrier and not a general purpose epoxy. Mill thickness is extremely important. In order for this to qualify and meet ASTM 3010, this one has to be at 12 mils, this one has to be at 16. Okay, so how do you do that? How do you measure 16 mils? So they have notch squeegees. They'll actually lay this material out at that thickness. So this notch, when I'm passing this material on the floor, it's going to leave a line of material, the right amount mill thickness that I'm going to need. Okay? And just to give an explanation of what that looks like, they sell different types of gauges of notches. So for example, if I said I need 12 for this product and 16 for this one's completely overkill. This is 50 to 60 mils of material. So this would be ideal for almost like a metallic epoxy, a very thick material base coat. Then they have others that are 15 to 20. So this one would be ideal for vapor band. So I would put minimum down pressure on this, and that will get me to that 16 mil range that I need. Okay? This one, 8 to 12, would be perfect for this product. Okay? With absolutely no down pressure on it, and that'll get me to that 12 mils. But how do I know I'm actually going to get that, even though this tells me it is? You would use a mill gauge. If you haven't seen this before, this is how you check the material. So let's say I have the epoxy on the floor. A lot of misconceptions what people do is they'll put the mill gauge and they'll scrape. Don't do that. You're literally supposed to dip it in and take it off. And then what you read is where you'll have material on it where you have liquid and where it stops. So in theory for the vapor band, I would want to be at 16. So I would be on this side and I would have at least material on from 14 to 16. And once this shows no material on it, that means it's going to be on the thicker side. But that's how you verify you actually getting the mill thickness required to be a vapor barrier. Okay? Now, tooling to apply this. All right, so you would use your notch squeegee, okay, to lay the material out, but you're not done there. You have to do a back roll to clean up those notches, those lines of material. So you would back roll it. First, you would saturate your roller so you're not picking up material, you're just cleaning it up. So typically, these two tools stay about 10 to 20 feet apart from each other. Okay, so one guy is laying out the material at the right thickness, and this guy's basically doing a back roll, cleaning it up. Very similar to painting. Okay? Also, with this one, I wouldn't actually need to be in spike shoes. I'm actually pulling the material and I'm walking backwards and it's staying wet behind this. But in order to step in this material, to back roll it, you're not going to walk in there with your sneakers. You're going to need a set of spike shoes that clip on. These are similar to basically a pair of Crocs, and they have spikes on them so you can walk on this material to where it's self-healing. Okay, so this is how you walk on a wet epoxy floor. So we covered the vapor barriers, slow cure, general purpose. This is a workhorse of our vapor barriers. And then we have the vapor band, which is fast cure, very exciting product. What I have pre-measured a 2-to-1 ratio is our vapor reduction coating. I just talked about mixed ratios. I want you to understand we have something on our products, every bag, every bucket, something that we call instructions. I encourage everyone to read them. All right, these come in 2.4 gallon kits. This one exclusively in 2.4. This one comes in 2.4 and 6.5. So if you don't want to burn a whole kit for a small area, you can do smaller batches. So 2-to-1, 3-to-2. 2-to-1, 3-to-2, and it's on the instructions in various languages for you guys not to mess that up. Very important. That can really burn you if you don't do the right mixing ratio. All right, so I think we are ready now to mix some material. And what I'm going to do is I have a board here set up. So this already has a coat of vapor barrier on it. It already has epoxy, and I split it up to two areas. So I'm going to do this to show you different ways of priming our vapor reduction coating. This one, the vapor band is self-priming, so it's self-explanatory. Same means and methods of applying that one. It's just I don't have an added step with this like I do with this one. Sorry about that. There was an incoming call. I thought I silenced my phone. So as I was saying, we're going to lay some material here. I'm going to put some epoxy. I'm going to lay it out. Then I'm going to cover it up so the material is laid out. And then I'm going to put prime and bond, which is our textured primer, okay, over the vapor reduction coating. I would like to finish this one first, but just because of sequence and having pot life, I'm going to just explain as I go. I'm going to lay out the material because with epoxy, you have life on the floor, not in the bucket. These cans are metal. They're not plastic like you're used to with Hydroban or waterproofing because they're two-component. They're short-filled, so you can pour your A into the B, and if you lose the mix, it burns up. It's not going to melt on the job site, okay? But you have life on the floor, not in the can. So for that reason, I'm going to mix the material up, lay a clean coat out, and I'm not going to throw sand into it yet because I don't want to contaminate this area because we're going to mimic this one being dry, and I'm going to put prime and bond on top of that. So two different methods how I bond my cementitious to my non-porous. I mean, porous and non-porous. Okay? So one thing that I noticed, a lot of job sites that I walk on, when people mitigate, they don't really address the cracks in the floor. And that's very dangerous because if I'm just putting a neat 16 or 12 mil coating on the floor, if that crack goes all the way down to the entire slab, what's going to happen? I mean, this stuff takes 3 to 8 hours to dry. It's going to gravity feed right into it, and then what? I no longer have that mil thickness at the surface. It becomes a volcano effect in all those areas. So I cut a piece of Hydroban board to kind of mimic a crack that was saw cut, cleaned out, so it's free of any dirty or any loose contaminants. And also I cut open a little square to kind of mimic a spall or a patch or a pop out. Okay, I'm going to come closer so you can see what I'm talking about here. So this is going to be our spall, and this is just going to be a crack that's going to mimic some patching. So what I'm going to do with the same exact epoxy I'm going to put on the floor, I'm going to have some leftover, and I'm going to add a thickening agent to it. The thickening agent is called fumed silica, okay, also known as Cabasil, but the actual material itself is called fumed silica, and you add it to about a 1-to-1 ratio. And it's going to make it almost like a peanut butter consistency. This fumed silica is extremely light. A 10-pound bag is about the size of a sack of potatoes. Let me show you, for example, this bucket is completely full of fumed silica, and it weighs nothing, okay? But it's literally just powdered form. It's almost, thinner. It's almost like a flour, just a lot lighter. You do want to wear a mask when you're mixing this stuff up because it goes everywhere, so respirators are important when you're doing this. All right, so having said that, I think we are ready to start mixing material. So let's put the right gear on. Like I said, what we're going to do first, now, if this were a decorative coating, that's extremely critical. That prevents any lint being in your finish coat. We're going to bury this anyway, but I just have the common practice of taping every single roll and putting it back in the box so it's ready to go no matter what the application is. Alright, so I have pre-mixed material here. Okay, so I have 2 part A, 1 part B. Alright? Grab a stir stick here. put my B into my A. B is my hardener. Take out all the excess so my ratios are exact. Now remember, this is just for smaller batches. You could just pour the entire smaller can into the larger one. But for smaller areas, this is what you do. A large batch you would mix for 2 minutes. Remember, you have life on the floor, not in the bucket. So as soon as I'm done with this, I'm going to lay out ribbons on the floor. If you don't know what a ribbon is, what that is basically I'm pouring a line of material. So let's say I mix a 6.5 gallon kit. You can't just lay out 6.5 gallons. So what I would do, let's say I have a room that's the size of this garage. I would pour material out, a ribbon, a line of material going from wall to wall all the way behind me, and I would do another line right in the middle of the floor. Okay, so that way all my product is on the floor instead of burning up in the can. Okay, this is a much smaller batch that I'm doing, so to get a full mixture of this is going to be a lot less than 2 minutes, but we'll run the time. Something very important too, that's a common mistake. Never put your bucket upside down on the floor. And I'll tell you why. All the loose stuff that's in this bucket is being mixed very well, but I can't guarantee you that everything along the walls of this bucket is fully mixed with A and B. So if I were to put this upside down, I have potentially unmixed resin that's going to turn into a soft spot in that floor. And guess what? You just lost a day to fix that. Okay, so what I encourage, if you're just a fan of putting buckets upside down and getting every single drip, get a transfer bucket. So do your mixture in one, dump it all in another bucket, and in that bucket you can put upside down and get every single drop. So that's good enough. There. I want to make sure you guys can see this. So I'm going to pour, this is what I was talking about. Let's say a ribbon of material. Okay? Someone who doesn't know, they would just leave the rest in the bucket and take as they need it. That's not what you do. Pour another ribbon of material until you get all the product out of the bucket. Okay? So now remember, I have life on the floor. So what I can do, I can leave all this here, and I don't have to worry about that firing up in the next 5 minutes. I have about 20 minutes on the floor with this. So we're going to go ahead and thicken this, because the first step is to patch your material. I'm a fan of, I'm going to mitigate, I want to patch with a mitigation, so I don't have a failure underneath it. So that's where that thickening agent is huge. You're putting mitigation on mitigation simultaneously. Okay, so I have some material here. Remember, I said this stuff goes airborne, so we're going to put a mask on, because I don't want to inhale this. So now you saw the viscosity on the floor. Let me show you what this looks like now. It's almost like a batter. Okay, and that's what I'm going to patch these holes with. Alright, so let's put this bucket here, bring this back. Because if I were just to roll material out on this, what's going to happen? It's just going to fill in this hole, and then I don't have my 12 to 16 mils that I need. So I would come in beforehand and fill these up. Now it's patched, okay? So now typically 8 to 12 hours, right? So now let's say you're in a time crunch. Now what I wouldn't want you to just lay a neat coat on top of this right away, because what are your notches gonna do? Those V shapes on that notch trowel, it's gonna pull it right out. All right, so at least wait 4 hours for it to tack up a little bit. If you need to, do it in the same day. Or you can patch with Fast Cure, done in 3 hours, and then you can proceed with a slower one if you need to save some money. But every crack, joint that you're doing, if you're mitigating, this is what you want to do, any irregularity in the concrete, to ensure that you put your neat coat right on top, okay? So, let's pretend that dried, and that's this floor here. So, I put a little extra material because I want to saturate my roller first. So, this is a little small to really demo a notch squeegee, so I'm just going to roll this out and do a few different back rolls. Now you would never just roll out epoxy like this on an actual large job, and I'll tell you why. This stuff is about a CPS about a 200. It's like a molasses. It's very thick. So if I have a ribbon in the middle and I roll away from it, my material is going to want to stay in the middle. So that notch squeegee evenly lays out the material, so that way this roller is not moving product. It's just cleaning up and leaving it uniform. Alright, so we'll do a couple adjacent back rolls since I didn't have that notch squeegee. Alright, so we're done here. So now would be when I throw my silica sand into it, the full rejection. For the sake of not making a big mess, I'm not going to do this yet. I'm going to cover it up and do that shortly. Alright, but here we're going to put down some prime and bond. Let's pretend this material dried and I don't want to throw silica sand. You don't have to. Silica sand, one, it's very heavy. It's about 1 pound a square foot to get full coverage. I mean, you want to have no shine in this floor. You don't just sprinkle a little bit of sand, because if that absorbs into the epoxy, you still have a non-porous surface. So you're broadcasting to rejection, so your cementitious is actually bonding to that open sand, okay? Now, to eliminate the need to do sand broadcasting with this product, you're going to use prime and bond. So now, this is our porous, non-porous primer, right? And it has aluminum oxide in it. Aluminum oxide is naturally heavy, so it's going to settle at the bottom. So always mix this stuff up before you actually use it. Otherwise, you guys ever squirt a ketchup bottle without mixing? What happens? You get straight juice and no ketchup. Same concept with any liquid in general. Your epoxies and your primers. Always mix each component separately before you actually mix it up to ensure you get a good cure. So I'm going to pre-stir this. Now remember, this has aggregate in it, so it's not just going to roll out super easy. So over a porous substrate, you get about 150 square feet per gallon, and over epoxy, you're going to get about 300. A small area like this, I can use a chip brush, but what I'm going to do is I like to use a different trick, what I call a resin broom. These brooms are actually part of our Spartacoat line for decorative coatings. All right, it comes in 36 inches, but you cut them to size for your project. So here I cut it with a bolt cutter and clamp the sides. Okay, these resin brooms come with a broom handle, these kits, and these cuffs using an Allen wrench is how you loosen them up, and that's what bonds your broom to your actual handle. Comes with two. You only need one, so I always recommend take one off and save it for later, because I guarantee you the first time you use this, you're probably going to throw it away with the cuff. That's a big no-no. The broom, treat it like a roller, single use, but these cuffs, you want these forever. All right? So I cut it to size. Now I'm going to rotate this just in case you guys can't see from that angle. So now I'm just going to take material out with this brush, but I want to show you how fast you can move this with an actual resin broom. Now imagine being in a big open area and you're not just fighting the material with a roller. Get enough on there. And with this resin broom, I'm going to get my edges first. Then you literally just figure eight. Now this product is thin to win. All right, the more you put, not the better it is. All right, I'll tell you why. It won't cure underneath. So let's say I have a patch or a spall that I just completely gravity feed with prime and bond. What's going to happen is it's going to dry at the surface. All right, but when you come back 2 hours later, you're going to put your finger on it. It's going to pop like a pimple. So what I encourage people to do is get a chip brush and tape it to a pole, and someone can be walking around kind of brushing it out of these holes as well. That's going to ensure that you have uniformity in your application of prime and bond, okay? Prime and bond, you would only need to put that on vapor reduction coating. You do not need that with vapor band. Remember, it's self-priming, so I'm completely eliminating the material, the labor, the time, all of it is gone with vapor band. So now, let's turn this back around so you guys can see this. Now we're going to broadcast to refusal. So now typically to refusal, you're going to get about 1 pound a square foot. This is a 20-30 grit mesh sand, so a lot coarser. It's not very fine. You want to have some texture. So they make 60-80s, was a lot finer. 20-30 is the way to go when you're broadcasting into a mitigation. So the higher, when you throw your sand, you don't want to throw it down because you're not going to get any coverage. If I throw it up, you get better coverage, and I get it everywhere in my garage, so I'm not going to do that. But the idea is the higher you throw, you want it to rain sand. All right, you want it to open up like an umbrella in the air and fall. So you just throw it to rejection. The idea is you don't want to see any shine on this floor. If it's wet, if it's shiny, you need more sand. If it's completely dry, it looks like a beach, you got floor rejection, you're going to have 100% bond on this floor. So now we went through both priming methods, vapor reduction coating. And they both work. It's really just preference on your job site. So silica sand to refusal or prime and bond right on top of it. This is going to dry with the epoxy. You never throw it into a dry epoxy. It has to be wet. So typically this guy goes first. About 10-20 feet after is this one. And then 10-20 feet after that one, someone's throwing this. So sometimes the guy doing this turns into this. Okay? Or you wait for it to dry completely and you put prime and bond on top of it. I believe I covered everything. Oh, one last thing, prime and bond. We talked about this not being, this being a porous and non-porous primer. This is a great demo. And the diversity of this product, it really goes into the tile side as well, not just self-leveling and surface prep. So if you want to do a tile-on-tile application, and you don't have budget for a 254 or a 257 that has enough polymer to bond to a non-porous, and you want to use a 252, for example, put this product first, and that'll bond right to it. So prime and bond, right over glass. This is a great demo for any of you counter folks. Do that, let it dry, and put it on the counter. People are going to touch it, they're going to feel it, and they're going to realize that's a glass tile, and you just sold some product right there, almost instantly. So that's moisture mitigation. I believe I covered all of it. Tune in tomorrow at 3 o'clock, and I'm going to be demoing a survey tool, how to measure how many bags you'll need, how to precisely measure how many self-leveling bags or mortar bed you would need for your job site. So this is a water surveying tool, and we're going to mimic a floor, put pins on it, and we're going to count it to the millimeter on to the T about how much it takes to get back to your zero or your highest point of your floor. So hopefully that was beneficial to you guys. I hope you learned something, and tune in tomorrow. Have a great day, guys.